Look around any restaurant, and you can usually spot the person everyone assumes is rich. Loud laugh, expensive watch, ordering without glancing at the menu twice. But watch the table next to them. A woman quietly splitting the check down to the cent, driving a Honda that's seen better days. 10 years from now, odds are she's the one who's actually wealthy. That's the trap almost everyone falls into. We confuse looking rich with being rich, and they are not even close to the same thing. A big paycheck is what lands in your account. Wealth is what's still standing after the spending is done. And a shocking number of high earners have almost nothing standing at all. So today, I'm breaking down 10 quiet, data-backed signs that someone actually has money. Signs that have nothing to do with their job title, their car, or their Instagram. And the last 4 are the ones nobody talks about. The ones that separate people who look rich from people who genuinely are. If you want to know exactly where you stand, stick around, because by the end, you'll be running your own life through this checklist. Number 1. Their money works even when they don't. This is the deepest gap between looking wealthy and being wealthy, and it's almost invisible from the outside. A high earner trades hours for dollars. A lot of dollars maybe, but the moment they stop working, the dollars stop too. Someone with real wealth has quietly built the opposite. Money that earns money on its own, whether they're at their desk, asleep, or on vacation with their phone off. Think about what happens to $50,000 sitting untouched in a solid index fund, earning a long-run historical average near 8% a year. In 20 years, without adding another cent, it roughly quadruples to over $230,000. That's not effort, that's time doing the work. Take Daniel, a warehouse supervisor who never cracked 6 figures in his career. For 2 decades, every raise and every tax refund went straight into index funds instead of upgrades. By his early 50s, the income those investments generated had quietly overtaken his paycheck. His coworkers still think he's underpaid. He's financially free while clocking in every morning. Number 2. A surprise bill is an inconvenience, not a crisis. Watch how someone reacts when something breaks, because that reaction tells you everything. The car needs a $2,000 repair. The dishwasher floods the kitchen the week before the holidays. For most households, that's a full-blown panic, and the numbers explain exactly why. According to the Federal Reserve's most recent household well-being survey, 37% of Americans still couldn't cover a sudden $400 expense with cash or its equivalent without borrowing or selling something. Someone with real money barely blinks. They keep 3 to 6 months of expenses parked in a high-yield savings account instead of a regular one, and that choice matters more than most people realize. The average traditional savings account in the U.S. pays around 0.4% a year, while top high-yield accounts pay close to 4%. On $10,000, that's the difference between earning about $38 a year and roughly $400 a year. Wealthy people never leave that gap on the table. Number 3. The car in the driveway is boring on purpose. Here's where people get fooled the hardest, because we're trained to read an expensive car as proof of wealth. It's often the opposite. The average new car payments in America just hit a record $770 a month, and nearly 1 in 5 new car loans now carries a payment over $1,000. Run the math a wealthy person runs almost automatically. Take that $770 a month and invest it instead. Over 30 years at an 8% average return, it grows past $1.1 million. So that car payment isn't really a car payment. It's $1 million decision handed to something that loses value the second it leaves the lot. A survey of over 10,000 American millionaires found that 84% of them credited avoiding car payments as a key reason they built wealth in the first place. People with real money feel that in their bones, which is why so many of them are quietly driving a paid-off Toyota or Honda that's a few years old. Number 4, the credit card gets paid off in full every single time. This one is quiet, but it might be the single most reliable signal on this entire list. In that same Millionaire study, nearly 3/4 said they have never carried a credit card balance in their entire lives. Compare that to the country as a whole, the average American credit card balance is around $6,500, and the average interest rate on cards actively carrying a balance is roughly 21 to 22%. Carry that average balance at 22% interest, and you're paying close to $1,450 a year in interest alone, money that buys you nothing and guarantees you stay a step behind no matter how hard you work. A revolving balance isn't a shopping problem, it's a wealth-building problem, because every dollar in interest is a dollar that will never grow for you again.
Number 5, they're completely comfortable saying no. This sign is easy to miss because it looks like nothing. It's the coworker who skips the destination bachelor party without a flicker of guilt. It's the friend who brings lunch from home 3 days a week and doesn't care who notices. It's someone hearing about the once-in-a-lifetime deal and simply saying, calmly, "That's not for me." That same Millionaire study found that 94% say they live on less than they make, and that same group reported spending $200 a month or less on restaurants and regularly using coupons. That gap between what they earn and what they spend isn't luck. It's protected on purpose by saying no far more often than saying yes. Now here's where it gets interesting, because the next 4 signs are the ones almost nobody ever talks about. Number 6, they buy back time, not stuff. Ask someone with real wealth what their money is actually for, and the answer is almost never a bigger house. It's time. It's the freedom to walk away from a job they hate, to take a random Tuesday off, to sit at their kid's school event without a knot in their stomach about the cost. Marcus built a small landscaping business over 15 years. The moment his savings could cover his family's core expenses, he didn't buy a boat. He cut his own work week down and started coaching his son's baseball team. Nobody can post that on Instagram, but it's the entire point of the game. If this is starting to sound like your own life, hit subscribe now, because the last 4 signs are the ones that quietly separate people who look rich from people who actually are. Number 7, their money has a job before it ever hits checking. Most people save whatever's left at the end of the month, and there's almost never anything left. The current U.S. personal savings rate sits at roughly 3 to 4.5%, meaning most households are saving only a small sliver of what they earn. Wealthy people flip that order completely. A slice goes straight into retirement accounts and investments, automatically, on payday, before they ever see the cash. Here's the number that should change how you see your own paycheck. A median earner making $60,000 a year, who invests 20% of it, about $12,000 annually, at a 7% return, ends up with over $1.1 million after 30 years. A high earner making $150,000, who only manages to save 3%, about $4,500 a year, ends up with roughly $425,000 in the same time frame. The lower earner wins by a landslide. The only variable that changed was behavior, not income. Number 8, they own things that pay them and avoid things that only cost them. Strip this whole list down to one idea, and it's this: an asset puts money into your pocket over time. A liability pulls money out. The boat, the third TV, the closet full of things that lose value the second you buy them, that's liability dressed up as success. An index fund, a rental property, a stake in a small business, that sends money back to you month after month. The gap this creates is enormous. The median homeowner household has a net worth of about $396,500 compared to just $10,410 for the median renter household, nearly a 38-to-1 gap. A huge part of that difference comes down to one question: who owns the appreciating asset and who is only ever paying for the roof over their head? Rosa, a plumber with a completely ordinary income, spent 2 decades buying small rental units in her own town instead of upgrading her lifestyle. Today, the rent checks alone outpace what she ever earned holding a wrench. On the street, she looks exactly like her neighbors. On paper, she's nothing like them. Number 9, their investing is aggressively boring. There's a persistent fantasy that wealthy people got there by picking the perfect stock at the perfect moment. The real story is almost the opposite. Roughly 3/4 of the millionaires surveyed pointed to regular, consistent investing over a long period of time as the actual reason they built wealth. Not a hot stock tip, not a lucky trade. Consider the plain math.
$500 a month invested at an 8% average return becomes roughly $745,000 over 30 years, and you personally only put in about $180,000 of that. Everything above that line is time doing the work. The people chasing the hot crypto pick or the meme stock tend to have the loudest stories and the emptiest accounts. Number 10. They can tell you their net worth, but never their salary. Ask most people how they're doing financially, and they'll answer with their income. I make this much. I just got this raise. Ask someone with real wealth the same question, and they think in a completely different currency. Net worth. What they own minus what they owe.
For context, the median American net worth sits at about $192,900. And that number matters far more than any salary, because income is water pouring into a tub, while net worth is what's still in the tub after everything else is drained out. Grace, a retired teacher, can tell you her net worth to the nearest few $1,000s without hesitating, but she'd find it almost rude if you asked her old salary, because in her mind, the salary was never the point. It was just the raw materials she used to build something that lasted. Go back to that restaurant from the beginning. Now you know exactly what you're looking at. The loud table is performing wealth for an audience. The quiet table already has it. An emergency fund that turns disasters into errands, a boring paid-off car, a zero credit card balance, an easy no, time bought back on purpose, savings on autopilot, assets instead of liabilities, patience when everyone else panics, and a number they track that has nothing to do with what shows up on a pay stub. None of it is loud. None of it is built to be seen. That's exactly why it works. So here's my question for you. Out of these 10 signs, which one do you already live by, and which one do you need to start this month? Drop it in the comments. And if you know someone who looks wealthy but is quietly drowning, or someone who looks completely ordinary but is secretly set for life, tell me about them below. And if this changed the way you think about money, the next video walks through the exact habits that actually build that first $100,000, the slow, unglamorous ones nobody puts in a highlight reel. That's where I'd go next.